And I'm going to begin with a question. So, why did Jesus come to earth? What was he anointed to do? What was he sent to do? Well, I reckon we can ask Jesus that, because he actually said that. He actually said, "This is why I've come." Well, firstly, he said, "This is why I've come." He said that when he was at Zacchaeus' place, and some Pharisees were complaining him mixing with the tax collectors and Pharisees and sinners. And he said, "The Son of Man came to seek and save the lost." He said, "I've come to seek and save the lost." And towards the end of his time on earth, he said to his disciples why he had come. He said, "For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many." And we all know that. He came to give his life that we might live. Before he said either of those, and at the very start of his ministry, he said something else. So when I say the very start, I mean at his first public, from what we know in the Bible, for his first public ministry event, which was in his hometown of Nazareth. It was after he was 30 years old, so he was allowed to speak in the synagogue then, because you had to be 30, because no one under 30 has anything worthwhile saying. Well, in Jewish culture. He was baptized, he'd been in the wilderness for 40 days, he came to his hometown, he came to the synagogue, he was invited to read. What did he read? He read the purpose for which he had come. He didn't make up the words himself. He got it from Isaiah. And this is how Luke records it. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour." So what did he say he was anointed and sent to do? To preach good news, to give sight to the blind, and to release the oppressed. That, he said, is my mission. So that's what he said he was anointed to do and sent to do. And it's interesting, and I did this a number of years ago. I thought, well, I wonder what he did after he said why he came. What did he actually do? And if you look in Luke, we can see immediately after that, we see what he did. Firstly, he went down to Capernaum, a town in Galilee, and on the Sabbath he taught the people, and they were amazed at his teaching because his words had authority. So he taught or preached the good news. He taught what people needed to know because they didn't know it. Then, what did he do after that? It says, "In the synagogue there was a man possessed by a demon, an impure spirit. He cried out at the top of his voice, 'Go away! What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us?'" Interesting how the spirit is not just talking about himself, he's actually saying, all of us evil ones. "I know who you are, the Holy One of God." "Be quiet," Jesus said sternly. "Come out of him." Then the demon threw the man down before them all and came out without injuring him. So he drove out demons. He set people, the oppressed, free. That's what he did. And then what did he do after that as he left the synagogue? He went to the home of Simon. Now Simon's mother-in-law was suffering from a high fever, and they asked Jesus to help her. So he bent over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. She got up at once and began to wait on them. And at sunset the people brought to Jesus all who had various kinds of sickness, and laying his hands on each one of them, he healed them. So he healed the sick. He preached the good news, he drove out demons, and he healed the sick. And one more thing that he did. He didn't say he was going to do this, but he did it. One of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray. He spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them. Now, Luke doesn't actually say why he chose them. Mark does. But we find out later. Why did he choose 12 disciples? We find out later in Luke, 3 chapters later. When Jesus called the 12 together, he gave them power and authority to drive out all demons, to cure diseases, and he sent them out to proclaim the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. So what did he do? He equipped people to partner with him to do exactly what he was doing. That's what he did. So 4 things after he declared what he was anointed and sent to do, he preached the good news, he delivered people from demons, he healed the sick, and he called and sent others to do exactly what he was doing with his authority. Power and authority. It's interesting, isn't it? Then we have, and if you say, well, what about in Mark and Mark and Matthew and John? Well, Mark and Matthew, similar. Luke is the only gospel which says he preached in the synagogue and declared his mission. But in Mark and Matthew, we see that after he had been tempted, baptism and been tempted, it says he did the same thing. He went and preached the good news, he delivered demons, healed the sick, called the disciples, and appointed them, and later sent them out to do exactly what he was doing, to partner with him in his mission. John is a bit different, and I'll mention it anyway, even though, as you'll see tonight, I was saying we have a model, or we have a mandate of what Jesus' mission was and how he wants to partner with people to continue his mission. John's a bit different because the first 3 things Jesus did, he did call the disciples, then he made sure there's plenty of wine at a party, and the third thing he did was went to the temple and caused a ruckus and upset everyone. So I'm not promoting that model, okay? All right, so that's what he did on earth, what Jesus did at the start of his ministry. So what about after the death and resurrection of Jesus? Did his mission to preach, heal and deliver and equip, did that stop? No. And we go to Acts and we see what did the apostles do as they went out? They preached the good news, they drove out demons, and they healed the sick. And they equipped others to join them on the mission and then sent them out on the mission. We see that especially Paul's a great example. He never went by himself anywhere. Well, to jail he did. But even there. So if he was going to go on a mission, he would say, come with me. Partner with me. So his mission didn't end after Pentecost. So when did it end, his mission? To preach the good news, to drive out demons, to heal the sick, and to equip people to carry on his mission. When did that end? It hasn't ended, has it? Although it's interesting in the church, as I've grown up too, I had no problem, and if you said in the church, is it still important to go and preach the good news? Imagine if you go into a church and say, well, actually, we don't need to preach the good news anymore because Jesus did that and that was in the past. How do you reckon you get on in that church? It depends which church. But when it becomes to say, we need to partner with Jesus because there's so many people who have got demonic strongholds in their life and we need to help them get free of them because they can't, we need to partner with Jesus to help them get free of them. How'd you get on a church if you say that? Well, you get on a right here. And what about when we say, yeah, now, and Jesus' mission was so important to heal the sick that we need to make sure that we do that as well. Now, we'll say something about healing because even in Jesus' time, you see that he did healing of the bodies, but you can see that he would often heal the heart because he would speak words of love and healing. Like he'd say, take heart, daughter, take heart, son. Because it was about healing the hearts as well. So do people today still need to hear the good news? Or do you need to hear the good news? Absolutely, I do. We all, because I think we believe lies. I don't try to believe lies, but lies sneak in. And I need to be reminded of the truth. Or people say things that I think, no, that's not right. I need to be reminded of the truth. Do people still need healing? Physical, emotional, mental, relational, spiritual? Yes, we do. Do you need healing? We all need healing. And do people still need deliverance? To have demonic strongholds broken in their life? Yes, I believe. And so, and it's even to think, well, if we're going to say we want to do what Jesus does, it includes all of those. And the Bible's very clear, I believe, that his mission includes preaching the truth, healing the sick, delivering people of demonic oppression, and calling and equipping people to carry on that mission. So here's a definition I'd say that we are all called to do. Partnering with Jesus to preach the good news, bind up the brokenhearted, and set the captives free. Partnering with Jesus to preach, heal, and deliver. That certainly is what the disciples did when they were with Jesus. It's what the apostles did. And so it's what we're called to do as well. So how do we do that? How do we do that? Which is a very good question. Next week we're going to look at some of the ways. Because he doesn't say this is the model that I want you to use. If you're looking for a model, this is the strategic way of doing it. If you're looking for that in the Bible, you can see it describes how different followers of Jesus have done it. But part of the question is to ask Jesus, well, how do you want us to partner with you? So I'm going to talk about one way that myself and others have learnt to partner with Jesus. And out of that has come a ministry which is called the Truth, Healing and Release Ministry. And I've used, instead of healing and deliverance, truth, healing and release. Because deliverance sometimes it can be a provocative word. So I'll say release, but it's the same thing. So next week we're going to look at how do you partner with Jesus? How do you know when he wants you to preach the good news? How do you know when you've got someone broken in front of you to say, how does he want to heal them and how does he want to set them free? We're going to look at that more next week.